Hello, welcome back to the Scale Modelling Twins. Today we're going to look at a recent build of mine. This is HK Models 148 scale Avro Lancaster Mark 1. I don't have the box anymore, but that's the poster you get with it, which is nice. So standard Lancaster, that is one of the schemes that comes with it. ZNY, which is Admiral Prune. Guy Gibson's one of his bombers before he transferred to and set up 617 dambusters for the raid that we all know about and everything else. The other option in the box is S for Sugar, which is the aircraft on display at RF Museum at Hendon in London. And it's a beautiful aircraft. I went for a different scheme. I went for an aftermarket decal scheme as WSJ. Just because I wanted a bit of extra colour in there, and this has got the yellow stripes around the red writing and all that sort of stuff. Plus, it's got Johnny Walker on the nose, so got to love a bit of whiskey, got to love a bit of Lancaster, and especially got to love a bit of Lancaster with whiskey on it. So let's swap to the other camera, and we'll have a closer look around. So I've thrown lots of extras at this one. So primarily, I'll start at the sort of the back end, if you like. The insignia, the roundels, I should say, and the flashes on the tail are a top-notch mask set and painted with SMS paint. So insignia red, insignia white, insignia blue, and trainer yellow. The camouflage scheme is aftermarket as well. That's a top-notch mask set with an aircraft with the wingspan this large. I wanted to try to get the demarcation of the panel lines pretty much as close to accurate as I can. And by having a mask set, it takes all the faff out of that sort of scheme, so it comes up beautifully. I think the top-notch masks, I've used them in the past, and I'll definitely use them every time. I think they're wonderful products. What else? I've gone for a bomb load aftermarket set. Flipping it over. These are, well, the cookie comes with the kit, but I've fitted a whole lot of the SBCs, the small bomb canisters. So these are aluminium boxes, pretty much, that carry 19 centimeters each, and the black straps that go across them basically just fall away when they pull the ejection, the bomb release handle. And yeah, all the incendiaries then fall out, free fall, and just set fire to everything that the cookies had turned inside out, and a whole lot of mess there. It's just a thing I do. I don't particularly like war and destruction. I don't think many people do, but if there's an option to make the most awful load there is, I will go for that every time. Just as a thing I do. It's not bravado or anything else. In fact, it's the opposite. It's just how awful humans can be to each other. But it's probably necessary. I'll leave that to somebody else, the historians, to argue. So the Belcher Bits SBCs. I've also I ordered some Belcher Bits Type C bomb trolleys, which I cannot see at the moment. I'll have a look around a bit later. Oh, here we are. Sorry, my mistake. So Belcher Bits a Canadian. I think it's Bill Belcher or Bob Belcher. I can't recall, but he's in Canada. So I got onto him. Got two sets of these Type C bomb trolleys, because all the conventional bombs that came in this, I was going to sit on these trolleys, being towed by a Fordson tractor or some other vehicle near the front of this, and just sitting on a tarmac. But I haven't gone around to that yet, but that's for a future sort of thing. So Belcher Bits, highly recommended. His stuff is really nice, molded in resin and everything else. There's that. The interior, which is going to be difficult to see, but if I turn that around, let's have a look. You probably can't, no, you wouldn't be able to see it, but rest assured, in there it's a Quinta Studio's interior set. So not only has it got the flight engineers panel, the instrument panel, it's got the front of all the radios and the navigation equipment as well. It's got The interior nose, emergency escape hatch, emergency exit if you like, which is that square panel at the front there. So it's lined. It's got basically anything you'd want for the interior, and that really lifts it as well. It's beautiful kits of Quinta Studio stuff. I've also got these barrels are all brass, turned brass. Let's see if I can. There we go. So they're Master Models brass 303 muzzles, barrels with flash suppressors. So they're actually really good. The main reason I got them is the other ones all were plastic, and by the time I'd finished building this, I'd knocked and broken every one of them except one of the upper gun turrets. So I had to do something. I could just get a bit of stainless steel or something or other, but these were available. Put these on, and they're a really nice purchase. I reckon if I was doing it again, I'd certainly go for them first up because they really lift it. They're really nice. It's got a crew all the way through it. So turn this around again. It's a bit hard to handle, you'd understand, but I've got a bombardier sitting back in his looking down his bomb sight there. So he's in the nose. You saw before, I've got the pilot. I've got the flight engineer sort of sitting down near his panel, sort of like, sitting on his foldable seat, actually. He's pointing up at 10 o'clock high past the pilot, pointing out something to him, whether it be another bomber or something coming in for them. At the back there, it's a bit hard to see, but the navigator is sitting at his desk, and he's really cool. One of the Quinta things in the set was a map, so he's sitting over the map, holding a pencil and a ruler and all that sort of stuff, so he's pretty cool. Under the Astrodome there, which is going to be impossible for you to see, but I can see it on certain angles, the radio operator sits there. Got a guy in the top turret looking back, and maybe you saw before is Tail End Charlie, sort of sitting all the way back there, looking over his sights and stuff like that. So the Tori Factory, it's a 3D resin printed set. Excellent. They're made to fit this kit actually. So there's absolutely no, as a for instance, there's seat belts molded onto the pilot's hip, and they perfectly match the sides of this seat. And that sort of stuff. There's the flight engineer, sorry, the radio operator, his feet sit on the floor. The navigator, his hands are on the desk. Everything is perfectly scaled. They're really nice. However, they're expensive. These little figures cost about 2/3 of the cost of the actual kit itself. So the kit was about 120 from memory, 130 Australian dollars maybe. The Tori set was 80 odd Australian. So was it worth it? Absolutely. It bloody looks fantastic. Look at that. They're flying. And they're they're molded in, instead of say the bombers jackets and the heated suits and all that leather and everything else. They're molded in they've got shoes on and trousers and stuff. So it's actually like service dress. So as a result, of course, I've painted them there's a painting in the Australian War Memorial, and I basically copied that for the colours and everything else. So they're wearing a Mae West and parachute harnesses and all that sort of stuff. There's parachutes throughout the thing as well. Behind the pilot, there's a yellowy sort of bag. I just made parachutes out of milliput, just sort of molded them, put it next to the crew and sitting at the side and all that sort of stuff. And that's an extra splash of colour as well. Now this kit. Other last bit of extras. I've got Brassin, the Eduard Brassin wheels. I don't know if let's have a look. Probably can't see it with the shadow, but they've got sidewall etching and the name of the company that makes the tyres and everything else. And of course, one piece is no seam on the rubber at all. So I'll get them basically because they were easy. And it comes, of course, with the tail wheel. It's an anti-shimmy tail wheel. So it's raised on the sides and shallow in the middle. I've got Brassin main undercarriage bay enhancement set, a detail set. So the bits you can see in that, it's the sidewalls of the bays there. What I had done is it's a bit of red, maybe you could see up the top above yeah, at the very top of that bay. It's the fuel tank on the side there. So that's a bit of plastic hard, and I painted that sort of like a hull red, if you like, a brick red, to simulate the fuel tanks in the wing, the auxiliary, the bags. I have the engines have an Eduard radiator set. So the front and back face of the radiator is a photo etch. You can't see the back at all in these, not a problem. But I didn't get them for the radiators actually. Well, I got them for the little sort of like FOD covers for the carburetors on the side of on the nacelles there, and I think that's worthwhile. I like them because yeah, there's a nice bit of detail there. So that was pretty cool. Looking at my list, last one of aftermarket is a Bombay set. Now, discussed the Ordnance before. The top wall of the Bombay there is a brass section, so that's basically the wing box from the front spar to the rear spar, and all the way across. That's all brass, and they've got little things in there. And the entire front and back, there's a sort of matrix setup. That's brass as well. You can't really tell, but it's worth getting because it was available. This kit itself is pretty flexible. All the pieces go together very well indeed. A great fit, a really good fit. You've probably heard, but these wings have like a dovetail arrangement. So if I sort of wiggle that forward, it'll just come off like that. As you can see, that marries up with that and slides back. So if you want to take it to a model show, you can pop the wings off and carry it around and everything else, and they just go on with the satisfying clunk. And it's solid as. It's not going anywhere at all. Same with the horizontal stabs. They just pop out with a couple of pins, and can't get those positions wrong. They just sit there very happily, perfectly flat, all that sort of stuff like that. So it's quite flexible as a kit. Now, the last thing I made, a couple of errors on this. I'll point them out because you won't know unless I point them out. So, we're all learning here. Let's have a bit of learning. WSJ, when I went for this scheme, what it's meant to have is the top of the J is meant to be in line with the top of the WS. But I wanted to have windows on mine. Basically because I wanted to have windows on mine. No other reason than that. It's my model. I could do what I want. But because I had a window, I wanted to drop the J down so it didn't cover up the window or have to paint it black. So the J is sitting a bit lower than what it should be. Now, you'll notice where that roundel's been painted there, it's in line with the window. Well, that's how it is on all the profile prints. And what I did is what you would do, I guess, on a Spitfire and have it on the same left and right hand sides. However, made an error. So what's meant to happen is you'd have the rear door, then the serial registration number, serial number, then the WS, so the roundel is meant to be more forward, and then the J, just behind the wing trailing edge there. Anyway, I put my roundel too far back to match the other side, and as a result, I couldn't fit the WS in between the registration number and the insignia. So I had to put it forward. So it's JWS instead of WSJ. As I said, if I didn't point it out, you probably wouldn't know, but that's something to look for. Is something I learned is, the insignia on the fuselage of, I'd say, all bombers, British bombers, World War II, is probably more forward than what it is on the left-hand side to fit the registration that way around. Like everything, there'd be exceptions. This one has the white fins as well. This aircraft, WSJ, was 9 Squadron RAF, which it started off being a conventional bomber, as I've got it here. It was later configured to carry the tall boy. So it's the same, well, it's a crutching mechanism in the center wing section where the cookie is there. But the simple change for that is swapping out the Bombay doors for bulged ones to be able to fit the Grand Slam in its Bombay, and then later on it probably carried a tall boy as well. It probably did. Fact is, I don't know. So I've depicted this earlier on in its career before it was changed from a conventional Mark, let's say 3. So WSJ was a Mark 3. This is a Mark 1 kit. The only external differences, really, so the Mark 1 had Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. The Mark 2, in case production of the Merlins was problematic, supply issues, they were fitted with radial Bristol Hercules engines. Not too many of those were built because they never ended or eventuated a supply issue with the Merlins. And a Mark 3 Lancaster was same as this, but it had Packard built Merlin engines. Now the differences with that is it had different exhaust stubs, which you can't see because these have got the anti-flame shrouds on them. It's basically just a big hole, so the airflow through them, but it masks and covers over the brightness of the exhaust from the Merlins. But then they had a different prop. So these ones, I'll take that off because I can. So it's got an engine in there, but you can't see any detail. So these props are rather pointed. That's from a Mark 1. The Mark 3 had paddle blades, so they're a lot more rounded at the tips. But that's really the only difference. I couldn't be bothered. I've thrown so many extras at this. I couldn't be bothered changing the propellers from a Mark 1 Lancaster to a Mark 3. The Mark IV never eventuated. Later on, it became on the way to the Lincoln. So that was the other big changes were going to be upgrading the guns from 303s to 50 cal. It never happened because Bomber Harris or Butcher Harris, whatever you want to call them, didn't want to pause production. That's pretty much half of the Lancasters that were built were shot out of the sky, and all the crew with them as well. But it's a beautiful aircraft, isn't it? So that's my 48 scale HK Models Lancaster Mark. I'm going to call it a 3 because, well, I'm going to call it a 3. So that's a quick view of it. I did a video of this yesterday, but watching it back, the sound was all a bit of a mess. Instead of defaulting to the microphone here, it defaulted to the microphone in my camera, and it just sounded terrible. So hopefully this is an improvement. So to all the people that watched that the first time around, this is hopefully the same content again, just speaking off the cuff. But yeah, there is one thing to watch for. If you are going to make this kit, I made another error I'll tell you about. So if you pick it up from the wingtips, you will bend it, like it'll do that. Because the floor of the roof of the Bombay and the floor of the fuselage, if you like, is just one piece. It doesn't go all the way around like most other fuselages on aircraft kits or whatever. There's not enough strength there to be able to, basically when I picked it up too far outboard, wings flexed and it broke along the seam on one side of the floor. And as a result, you could see this dirty great seam down here because it cracked open all the way down. And one of my recognition light lenses fell out and went to God. I don't know where it is. It's probably in a different suburb. So that's a bit of a mess. And with that crack, I heard, one of these wings flexes. So yeah, that one. And so when I do that, if the floor of the Bombay on that side, let's see, you can probably see green up the side of it. Yeah, it's a bit broken. So watch that. If you're going to build it, careful how you pick it up. The wings stay on really well, but if you want to strengthen where you put the floor into the fuselage halves, maybe a bit of square styrene strip or something or other as a doubler. I'd probably do something like that next time because you can imagine all this work I put into it. It sort of went, it was pretty awful. But it's as I say, great looking plane. And this size, given the choice, the HK Models 48 scale Lancaster or the Tamiya 48 scale Lancaster, personally, I would recommend this one. The Tamiya one, not every Tamiya kit is as good as all their later ones. It's a product of the 80s, so I've not built it, but this would have to have more detail because it's a product of its time. It's a recent release, and I'm going to change the camera one more time. So let's lift the wing up. I just knocked a pitot probe off. Oh, that's something else to fix. when I find it. Yeah, so you can see the detail, panel lines and the wings and everything else. It's just really subtle and really nice. Yep, you can see where the Pitot probe was. I'll have to find that and fix it. Well, you saw it here first, folks. Always breaking stuff. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do this again soon with another kit because, I've got a couple to look at. Hooroo. Thanks for joining. Bye.